Hello YouTube, hello, and we're back again, of course, as we always are. And today we're going to be talking about what to pay attention to in game. Of course, the thumbnail already told you guys, but yeah, today we're going to be talking about what to pay attention to when you're actually playing the game in ranked, when you're playing the game in general, right? Doesn't matter in ranked, offline, or with friends, doesn't matter. If you want to get good at the game, what do you pay attention to? Let's start. So, first things first. When you first start the game and you want to pay attention to the screen, the first thing you have to look at, and the first thing that you're automatically going to look at, is going to be your character. For example, I'm playing Kaz right now, right? So most of the time you will be looking at your character because you're trying to do your combos, you're trying to do your moves, you're trying to look at your character to do certain stuff. Right? At first you're going to start from there. So look at your character, try to do your combos correctly, right? So nothing drops, and yeah, you're going to start from here. It's not the best thing, obviously. You should not be looking at your character. I will explain this later as well, but it's not a bad thing to start with. Okay, that's at first. When you're first starting, you're looking at your character, you're doing your combos, you're doing your moves, you're getting used to stuff, basically, right? Yeah, that's one, when you first start. Next, when you're trying to understand the game a little bit better and trying to get better at the game, you have to pay attention, and you have to actually get used to looking at your opponent. Right? Either your opponent or the whole screen in general, it's up to you, but it's very, very important to pay attention to your opponent specifically. Right? The whole screen is a little bit later as well, but yes, try to pay attention to your opponent, pay attention to what they do. For example, when you play against a Brian, if you don't pay attention to what the opponent is doing, you'll not be able to block even something like this. Right? This is a snake edge, which is very slow. Very slow low. It will instantly launch you. It will hurt when it hits you, but it's very slow, right? And if you're not paying attention and you're just looking at your character, you will not be blocking this, right? And you will not never learn to react to this. Sometimes for some people it will not be reactable instantly because it's hard. You know, Tekken's a hard game. You have to get used to stuff like this. But you have to pay attention to your opponent's character to actually start getting used to stuff like this and start reacting, let's say, start noticing some stuff. Very important to start looking at your opponent's character. And this is important not only from the start, but also at the end of ranks or higher level of play, because when you notice and pay attention to your opponent's character, you can notice what we call patterns or flowcharts or whatever you want to call them, right? For example, a Brian player might like doing something like this into down 4 on block, right? You just block this, they down 4, and because you know stuff or pay attention, let's say, because they like doing something like this, you know to low parry here, because you can't really do anything else. This situation right here, you can't do anything else. You have to block this, right? And maybe you'll notice this, and now, oh, I can low parry it, or I can block it, and now that's a setup that you just notice. Not setup, but basically an option they like to do. Another thing that Brian players might like to do, and you will notice if you actually pay attention, is something like down forward 1, 4, 3. Like, they like doing something like this because you might do a delayed button and get countered. Like I got countered right there. There you go, right? And if you notice something like this, maybe you'll counter them back instead. That's why I like doing down forward 2 here whenever I block this sometimes. And then, you know, you launch them. This is very important, and this happens when you pay attention to your opponent's character. Opposite, it's a combination of a lot of stuff, like knowing what Brian's moves do, what flowcharts actually are there in general, and there's a lot of combinations, but pay attention to your opponent's character is like #1 thing you're supposed to be doing. Right? It's one of the most important things in Tekken. When you're looking at the screen, try to pay attention to what your opponent is doing. Okay, so that's the next level of it, more or less. I mean, it's not a level by level basis, but it's just, I'm explaining it a little bit on simpler terms. Now, next thing you also want to pay attention to, as I already mentioned, is the full screen. By the full screen, I mean you have to have awareness of the stage. So not only are you paying attention to your opponent, you're paying attention to your character somewhat as well. You don't really need to pay attention to it that much when you get used to it, right? You can literally ignore your character. But obviously, the positioning of your character is still important. The positioning of your opponent is still important. This is what I mean by looking at the full screen. For example, are they far? Are they close? Because that matters. If they're far, they might use different moves. If they're close, they will use different moves. So that matters. Spatial awareness. Not only stage awareness, which matters for the walls. Let's say if you're close to the wall or not close to the wall, this is important because you might get a wall splat when you're close to the wall, right? But if you're not that close to the wall, let's say you're somewhere around here, obviously you won't get a wall splat, but you'll know that when you launch someone, there's gonna be a wall somewhere around here, you can wall splat them and then do your combo normally. So this is what we'll call spatial and stage awareness. So be aware of walls. It's hard, it's not always very easy to do. Some stages are easier than others. It's also very, what's it called? It's person dependent, basically. Some people will have easier time on some stages, a harder time on some other stages, and many other stuff. Basically pay attention to the space of the stage, to the spacing of your opponent, to the spacing that you are doing, how far you are, how far they are. For example, if you're far away, he's following me. Stop following me. So if you're far away, you can do electrics as keep out, right? If they're far away, they might do electrics as keep out if they're playing. Also, you can expect stuff like this. So this is why spatial awareness is so important. As I said, people choose different options based on how far or how close they are to you. So this is very important to pay attention to. Oh yeah, as I said, simpler terms. Next, what you have to pay attention to is gonna be character specific stuff. Not that everyone is gonna have character specific stuff to pay attention to, most likely anyway. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't really play a lot of characters, I can't say. But what I can say is that for someone like us, for example, it's important to pay attention for two things, which are character specific. One is gonna be their ducking patterns. I'm not saying if they duck or not, right? If they duck or not, if you pay attention to that, that's good for every character, right? How much they duck. That's just another step of pay attention to the opponent, which I already mentioned. If they duck a lot, you have to pay attention to that, obviously, right? One of the things to pay attention to. But what I mean by duck patterns when you play someone like us is that some people like to do what we call a fuzzy, you know, this kind of stuff. You duck for a little bit and then stand up. You pay attention to fuzzies with us. That's what I call a character specific thing you have to pay attention to. Because if they fuzzy, your mids are most likely not gonna be as strong because all of your strong mids are pretty slowish, right? This, even something like F4 most of the time will work, but still, right? All of them are kind of slowish, so if you pay attention to their fuzzies or duck patterns, as I call them, like how they duck, you can not pay attention, but you can basically take advantage of that. Let's say delay your timing a little bit, like do something like this, delayed hell sweep, something like this, delayed down back 4, like this, delayed CD1+2, and the more you delay your timing, the more uncomfortable you'll make them feel. So this is important for us. The other thing that's also important for us is to notice their sidestep direction and tech roll direction. For example, whenever you knock them down after a hell sweep, if they tech roll this way, that's tech roll left. That's the way they are supposed to tech roll, right? You don't really have that good of, you have decent options, but your options aren't as good. Like for example, you can't really FF3 here. This you can't really do most of the time, right? This is something you pay attention to as guys, because if they tech roll the other direction, let me just, you know, do this, suddenly your FF3 works. So if you pay attention to which side they tech roll and you notice, oh, they are tech rolling right or sidestepping right, you suddenly have way more options, because sidestep right usually isn't the best against guys, and your options get widened per se. You have more options and better stuff. And this is just one example for one character, which is mine, because that's why I know what to talk about. But when it comes to other characters, you might have like something similar as well. For example, against Nina, or if you're playing Nina, maybe you're gonna pay attention to what their options are after you do down forward 1-2 or down forward 1 in general, or some other mind games as well. If you're playing Dragunov, you pay attention to what they do after wall running 2 gets blocked, right? And stuff like that. As I said, there are a lot of character specific stuff that you can be paying attention to, especially if you're a high level player. So yeah, that is important. Now the last thing I'm going to be talking about is the 2 bars that we have above our heads, the HP bar, and in Tekken 8 this is now the heat bar. So pay attention to the HP bar. The HP bar is actually very important to pay attention to, not because just so you know when you're dying, obviously, right? But also you have to pay attention to your opponent's HP bar, not just yours. Yours, obviously, it's important, everyone knows that, because you have to know when you're dying or not. But your opponent's is also important, because your opponent will choose different options based on your HP. A very good example of that is, for example, Mishima players will start hell sweeping you like crazy whenever they have low HP. Example, right? There are a lot of Mishima players that do that, and if you notice that, let's say you pay attention to your opponent's HP and they're low, you're like, okay, maybe I should be expecting a bit more hell sweeps now. Maybe, right? And there's a lot of situations like this. Well, this will be helpful because when someone is full HP, maybe some people, depends on the person as well, that's why you have to pay attention to stuff like this, is some people will like to hell sweep when they're full HP, but they will never hell sweep if the hell sweep will kill them. For example, if they're 50% HP, they will never hell sweep because they're gonna die to it. But if they're full HP, they don't care, hell sweep, and they won't die to a blocked hell sweep, so they'll just do it anyway. So this kind of stuff can matter, and if you pay attention to it, gonna be great, obviously, right? Gonna be amazing. Now that's the HP bar. As I already said, it's a little bit more in the simpler terms, and I will not be explaining everything in this video, but yeah, simpler terms. Next one is the heat bar. So the heat bar is a Tekken 8 exclusive thing. This was never something you had to pay attention to before, and the reason you have to pay attention to this is, one, you have to know if they have heat or not. This is the simple part, right? If they have the blue bar or not, which most likely you'd already know. If they already went into the heat and used the heat smash, they don't have it anymore. It's not that complicated, you already know if they have heat or not. Okay, that's step one. Two is when they have heat, you have to pay attention to how much bar they have left. This is very important because most people, like 95% of people, whenever they are in the heat and they're running out of heat like this, let's say, and going down, it's almost over. Let's say they have a sliver left. You can expect them to do a heat smash most of the time if they have a mid heat smash or even a low heat smash, but mid one especially. So pay attention to the bar. If it's slowly going down and it's right at the end, you can expect them to heat smash, or you can expect them, if they have it, to heat dash with a very, very strong move. They have a lot of strong heat dashes in the game, so instead of a heat smash, they might choose to do a heat dash. For example, with Kaz, instead of a heat smash, I just use down back 1-2 most of the time when I'm running out. Because down back 1-2 is basically our heat smash. This is that good. Down back 1-2 is amazing. But yeah, for other characters like Brian, maybe heat smash, maybe QCF 1+2. It depends, right? It really depends. They might be doing a lot of stuff, and that's why it's important to pay attention to their heat bar, because now we can predict what they're gonna do. Sometimes the prediction won't really help, but what it can do is you will just stand still and at least block instead of getting hit, right? So that's already good enough. If you ask me, that is already good enough. That's something. Maybe it's gonna change in season 3. Maybe we can actually predict something and counter them. But yeah. Anyway, that's gonna be it for today. Simpler terms, not talking about everything. I could talk about a little bit more stuff, but yeah, as I said, simpler terms. And hopefully, this was helpful. Hopefully. And yeah, everyone on YouTube, thanks for watching. I'll see everyone next time. Till then.